Rolls on a bookie's chin. Let it all soak in. Doubling my bread, winning money with my friends. If you got the itch and you wanna go big, follow SharpieBets and you gon' really fucking win. This is not financial advice, it's entertainment. But if I find the right price, believe I'm parlaying it. You can see my spreadsheet, I'm winning, not just saying it. Profit in the green every week, I'm never negative.
And this is where I wish I had volume, because I had the Macho Man coming out with the NWO, but it doesn't matter. You've got volume on now, guys. So welcome to the World Series Game 3 Bets and Breakdowns. I'm your host, Sharpie's Bets, and this is my boy, SpinDocSports. For those that don't know who SpinDocSports is, you've been sleeping under a damn rock or just new to me in this channel. But I was talking on the phone with my boy this morning, and I was like, bro, you busy today? You want to talk some baseball on my channel? And here we fucking are. So I appreciate you for joining me this afternoon. How you been? And I know you're ready to talk baseball.
Oh, I'm ready. I am ready. This is actually my first day back to my normal grind. Was out of town all last week. So I'm getting used to, was in Hawaii. So getting used to baseball games being on at 7 o'clock my time instead of like 11 o'clock in the morning or 2 o'clock in the afternoon. That was weird.
Went from beautiful sun and beach to freezing balls, bro.
Dude, it's
to
cold
below
as shit,
freezing.
Dude, it's like 35 here. I fucking hate this state sometimes. Anyways, that's not what we're here about. We are here about the World Series. I got my write-up all the way done already. I've been capping this for a while now. I'm ready to roll.
All right, let's get right into it, guys. All lines I will be using are from FanDuel, and we're updated within 30 minutes of this recording. As we have Scherzer versus Fat in this pivotal Game 3 matchup with the series tied 1-1, where the Dbacks are a slight favorite first 5 at -116 with the comeback on the Rangers at a -108, yet flips full game to the Rangers being a slight favorite at -112, and the comeback on the Dbacks being a -104. Which makes absolutely no fucking sense to me, guys, as the better bullpen is the D-backs. And if they're favored first 5, then I believe they should be favored full game as well. But that's just my opinion. So there may be value on the D-backs full game, guys, but I'll say it all the time. There is no value in a losing ticket. And the total in this game, first 5 is set as a 5 juice to the under, with the full game at a 9.5 with that juice to the under as well. Now, for me, before we get into the prop side of this, I can see the under or over first 5, guys, as I don't want to guess what's going to happen. As I do lean the D-backs first 3, first 5 full game. I just couldn't get to the window and put my money on it, guys. At the end of the day, I'm not here to give you picks. I tell you my bets and the reasons why we stay off. As when we get into the prop side of this, guys, I don't know how long Fat is going to go. But Fat has a major advantage first time through this lineup, as he is in the 80th percentile when it comes to release point, as he releases the ball damn near 7 feet from the pitching rubber. And one thing I've learned in baseball, every foot closer you can get to home plate with your release point is 3 miles per hour faster to the batter's eye. So yes, the average pitcher is at 55 feet. Fat, nah, guys. Nah. His shit is a whole freaking foot farther than where the average foot freaking pitcher lands. His 94 plays like 97, as well as this team just not seeing him with a release point. He's a tall guy. He's a big boy, guys. A release point of just 5.5 feet off the ground, guys. That's super low. So it plays for him well with the way he likes to attack up in the zone. And I've got to expect Fat to be up for this challenge, guys, especially first time through this lineup, where, like I said, they've never seen him. And especially in these playoffs, guys, where strikeout pitchers thrive. And that's what Fat is. He was the first rookie to have over 200 strikeouts in AAA since 2011. So, yeah, he was demoted and hit hard in the regular season, but his shit plays in the postseason when it matters. So I do think he goes right around that 4 to 5 innings, 2 runs or less. The other side, personally, is Mad Max, and what do we get from him? As he's thrown 63 pitches, 42 pitches in his first 2 starts back from the IL. And after watching all the reports and listening to Bochy speak, guys, I've got to think Max is ready and up for the challenge. And the leash is built in to this guy, where we would actually think he doesn't have a leash after getting hit hard by the Astros the first 2 times. But I can see Max guys giving up 2 or 3 runs in any given moment. That's Mad Max. But I could still see this guy going 5 to 6 innings today. And I will play a few video clips when we get into the prop side, as I've got to expect Mad Max to be Mad Max. He's going to show up. He's going to do his job. But Mad Max will give up a home run or two. That's just who he is and what he does, guys. Is he going to be perfect? I don't know. Do we get the Mad Max who fucking doesn't care if he gets thrown out for cheating? Because if so, then he'll have fucking 9 strikeouts or more in about a 5-inning period. But at the end of the day, I think he pitches to contact. I'll get into that a little bit later on. But the lean for me on this, guys, is Diamondbacks full game, first 5, first 3, if we're going to talk sides. It's just simple. We have a team who's playing for each other, guys, like that doesn't show up in the box score. And to make my point, guys, Torey Lovullo was asked about a potential historical moment when he took Pham out the game, when he could have been the first player in history to go 5 for 5 in a World Series game. And Lovullo said he wasn't aware of that, but Pham said, I need my boy to get an at-bat in the World Series. He'll remember this for the rest of his life. He may not have another role or chance to get in. Please take me out and put him in. That speaks volumes, guys. This team is playing for each other, not just for the name on their chest, guys. So to me, this is a super huge pivotal game. The Rangers have to fucking win it going into a bullpen game tomorrow, but I just don't lean that way, guys. But I'll get into my bet when the time is to get into the bets. I have no bets on the sides or totals, but this is a breakdown of the game. So before we get into props, what me and my friend do like to bet a lot. Do you have any leans or things to talk about on the sides and total of this?
Yeah, a couple things to talk about. So first of all, thanks for having me as always. Always willing to talk K-props and baseball, especially since we're running out of chances to do it this year. We're going to have to go KBO soon. But anyways, in regards to the World Series, yeah, I do have a lean on the over here, whether that be 9 or 9.5. The 2 reasons why. Number one is that I hear what you're saying about Max potentially giving up some early runs, which then can catch up with an over total later. Max, this is the first time in his career that he has a hard hit percentage over MLB average, meaning that he allows more hard hit contact than MLB average. MLB average 36.3, Max at 36.9. Now, ever since he's come back from the injury, it's actually been a little more. But as you mentioned, they have been stretching him. He's looked good in bullpen sessions. And you also got to remember that the last 2 games that he pitched in the playoffs were against the same team. The same team which he's seen a bazillion times over his career, who he has documented poor strikeout history against and documented multiple short starts against. He doesn't have that tonight. This is a totally different situation. I will tell you this because I draw on past history a lot when I'm doing K-props during the regular season. Just like hitters, pitchers, managers, everybody else prepares differently for a postseason game, specifically a World Series game. You have to prepare your capping differently. Using regular season averages doesn't really do anything. Using, well, this guy faced, like for example, we'll get to Fott in a second. Like Fott faced the Rangers once this year and had 3 strikeouts. Well, it was back in fucking May, and it was his first start of his career. So if you're comparing that, don't throw it out the window because it means nothing right now. I do agree with you about the Diamondbacks. If I had to just tell from being a former athlete and a coach about just what dugout looks like they're enjoying themselves more and are looser, which matters at this point in the season, it certainly looks like Arizona. There is something that can always be said for a team that quote unquote isn't supposed to be there because there's no pressure on you. Because like, hey, they overachieved by making the postseason. They overachieved even more by beating the Brewers. And to get to this point, holy God, it doesn't matter what happened. Even if they get swept 10-0 in the next 3 games and the Rangers obliterate them and win the World Series, which I don't think will happen, but let's say it does, the Diamondbacks can look back and be like, we overachieved the shit out of this year. There is nothing that they can do the rest of this World Series that would not make this season a smashing success. On the other side, you have the Rangers, and Astros fans like to bitch about it, but hey, like, oh yeah, the Rangers spent $500 bazillion million gazillion dollars to beat us this year. Yes, and you guys have banged on trash cans and God knows what else. So I don't want to hear that shit. But the point being is that the Rangers are the ones who, if any pressure is anywhere, it would be on them, because this team, they spent the money on DeGrom. They spent the money acquiring Scherzer. They spent the money on Evaldi. They spent the money. I mean, basically, you could start the Rangers off season.
Like
basically,
they
you can start
Bochy out of Hall of Fame.
You can start the Rangers off season with they spent the money on, and then insert about 2/3 of their roster, and that's how they got to this point. They bought good talent. They have a good manager to manage the talent and potential egos that might come from that, unlike maybe out in, like, say, San Diego, who their manager can't manage egos for shit. Bochy can, and he did. And so it's a tale of two teams. But if you're looking at the teams and looking at, like, who appears to be, like, looser and, like, more carefree, it's the Diamondbacks for sure. And there's a lot that can be said about this. So I don't mind the Diamondbacks looking the first three. I don't mind Diamondbacks first five. As far as the game itself goes, I don't know. I really don't want to pick a money line winner on this one. I think that if I can get either team at a decent plus price, if it's still a 1 or 2 run game at any point in the game, I might look to take a live shot on that. But if you gave me a free play, I'd probably play the Rangers, just because to me, they need this game more. But that would literally just be a guess. So lean on the over. I'll get into a little bit more of why in a minute, but it also does have a decent amount to do with the gentleman behind the plate. And I know that Sharpie's got some graphics teed up that we'll show you in a minute that accentuates what I'm talking about. Because if you, during the regular season, followed me, which I know probably a lot of people watching did, you knew that I looked for 2 umpires when it came to K-props. 1 was overs and Bill Miller, and 2 was unders in Alfonso Marquez. They are the most pitcher and hitter slanted umpires in the major leagues statistically. So in an Alfonso Marquez game where you have a bunch of pitchers, and this even goes to the bullpen, because I looked at there too, that tend to try to do the things that he doesn't give calls on, you could very easily see some more walks tonight. You could very easily see a lot of hitters counts tonight. You could see some runs tonight. You hate to think that the umpire makes that big of a difference, but this one does. This one does, and this one has. In fact, his overall leverage rating, which for those that don't know, it's a rating that measures the overall impact on the result and the number of runs scored in the game. His leverage rating is in the 81st percentile. So what that means is that his calls tend to have a higher impact on the overall result of the baseball game. And when he is a hitter slanted umpire, and when he has such a low strikeout percentage, 5 to 10% less in games that he umpires, and walks are increased in games that he umpires, you can safely assume that he's not going to all of a sudden change right now in the World Series, and you're probably going to see some guys on base. That's why that's one of the main reasons why I lean to the over. I think that, to your point, I don't see Fott. I certainly don't see him going more than 2 times through the order. 18 and he's out. 18 plate appearances, 2 times through the order, whichever comes first, gone. That's just how Lovello manages him. And you also got to remember, he's been pitching his ass off in these playoffs, and I love the future and the outlook for the kid. But look, let's face it, he is still a rookie. He is still a rookie in the World Series, and he's against a team that doesn't chase. They have the lowest chase percentage of all playoff teams if you factor in their games in the postseason. And I'll bring it up in just a little bit about where Fott likes to work. Honestly, it's not a great combo. Now, going back to your point, Sharpie, about when he releases where he releases the ball. I actually pulled this up. This is a scouting report from December of 2020. So back when he was not even a blip on MLB teams' radar, and he might have been top 100 then, or just outside of it. Physical description says filled out his frame on the mound, broad shoulders, strong upper half, long, lanky legs used for his delivery, and just throws behind his front foot for velocity, and follows through extensively on his pitches. That pretty much matches up exactly what you said. He hasn't changed his pitch mechanics since December of 2020. And to your point, if you just watch, I actually watched a few clips of his delivery in slow motion. I always like to do that before I cap playoff games like this, is that I absolutely see what the scouts are talking about. His windup is normal. His kickback is normal. His delivery just looks weird when you do it.
Drop and drive, he gets so
it looks
low.
Strange. It's so strange. It looks so strange
to get that tall and stretch that far.
It looks strange.
He shrinks his whole body, bro. It was nuts watching some of that. But yeah, let's get into the part everybody really cares about, guys. And we're going to talk Max Scherzer before we get into the home pitcher. And if you tuned into the Walking Dead, you know how we like to go. We go back and forth, and then we go to the next guy. So Max Scherzer's strikeouts on FanDuel are over 4.5 at a -128, whereas outs on FanDuel are 14.5 plus 112 to the over. I know we see the same way here as we were talking this game early on the phone, but let's talk to some Mad Max versus these D-backs props.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm assuming at this point, everybody knows who Max Scherzer is. So I probably don't need to set up like what his pitch mix is and who he is. Everybody should know at least who Max Scherzer is. The one thing that you don't appreciate about Max is how technically sound his delivery is. His mechanics throughout the course of his career have been outstanding. That comes from his time in high school. He's talked about this in the past too, about his high school coach, and one of his mentors, like really like one of the guys who taught him how to pitch, stressed over and over again, almost like insanely, which probably explains some of his tendencies now, because he's such an intense guy, about every little movement matters. Every angle, every flip of the wrist, when you cock your arm back, like when you're pitching, everything matters, and you never waste pitches. And that's actually been a staple of Max throughout his career. Up on the screen here is the graphic of, you can see, and credit to Umpire Auditor for this graphic, especially with his face in the background. I like that, of all of the Diamondbacks hitters compared to Scherzer. And then from Baseball Savant, you see the locations of his pitches. So here's what you notice about Marquez. I've talked about how he's the patron saint of unders, but he actually is pretty generous on the outside edge, specifically to right-handed batters. What he is not is on the inside. So if you're thinking about some of Max's breaking pitches, if he's going to try to run those on the inside, as he did against the Astros, at least tried to. He tried to drop curveballs, he tried to drop sliders on the outside, and they weren't biting, and he wasn't getting the calls. He could get those calls tonight. He very, very easily could get those calls tonight if he tries to paint anything on the outside corner. You'll notice that, you'll see this with Fott in a second, Scherzer does not really attack low in the zone. He goes all the way from the 8 o'clock to the 4 o'clock, which is the clock thing there, if you're looking at an actual clock. Doesn't really attack low in the zone, likes to run things up. And you'll also notice, if you look at either lefties or righties, is that Marquez's strike zone can extend up for those guys. So what he doesn't do typically, though, is ring guys up with strike 3 on those pitches. So you can see Max getting a lot of 2-strike counts. Will that translate to Will that translate to strikeouts? Maybe, maybe not. The Diamondbacks have been, they were elite last game at not striking out, but you got to remember, this is a totally different pitcher that they're facing. This is completely different. You had Jordan Montgomery, who was a breaking ball, junk ball thrower. He actually didn't have velo on his fastball. They had measured that a couple times during the game. So Max's velo has actually slowly been coming back. And probably not at the 96, 97 that you normally see him at, but it has been coming back over his bullpen sessions and even over his last few starts. So what I see here with Max is, I do agree with you on the pitch to contact. Very, very, very much so. I think that he is a guy where, more than striking guys out and wanting to have the big moments, He just wants to be out there. He just wants to win. And the way that he's staying out there is by pitching to contact. So I have a slight lean on his under strikeouts. I don't know if I like it as much at the 4.5, just because I do think he's going to go longer than 5 innings. So to expect multiple innings of no Ks with Max, even against a Diamondbacks team on the road, I don't know. I think that this line is actually set almost perfectly. When I ran my raw math, combining all the methods that I use and God knows how many data points, literally his strikeouts came out, the final number, and I'm sharing it here, 4.52. So, it was like the line is set pretty well perfectly. So I would look to attack Max in other ways. I would look to attack, his outs, which I know we're going to talk about in a second. I would also potentially look to attack his earned runs. And I would not be surprised if he gives up more. I would not be surprised if he goes more than 5 innings and gives up 3 or 4 earned runs. Totally fine.
It's like 1.5. Pay the juice. Minus 170. Find something you like big and something else from 800 and get it down for even money.
Yeah.
But yeah, at 1.5 runs, bro, with his innings at 14.5. Ooh, boy, what are they?
Now, the other thing that I did factor in, not mathematically, but I did factor it in from a decision-making standpoint, is Max has had 11 games behind the plate, including a few this year with Marquez. He has a 33% strikeout percentage. That's a little inflated because the last few have been lower than the first few, because that was when he was striking guys out at like 45 or 44%. So it drops a little, but if you look at the last games that he's had with Marquez behind the plate, this is a veteran pitcher who knows how to adjust. I showed on that graphic about how Marquez gives the outside corner. Marquez gives the outside and gives up. So Max is the kind of pitcher who will adjust and know to adjust to that from the jump. Will Fott do that? Because Fott has never seen Marquez before. You can get all the scouting reports you want, but you got to remember, guys, these guys are creatures of habit. These are creatures of habit. And oftentimes it takes 1 to 2 innings to adjust where you're going to place pitches based on what an umpire is doing. But if you're a guy like Max, who's seen him 11 times before and who has adjusted based on the number of strikeouts, and more specifically, the number of strikeouts looking that he's had with Marquez, because that's always what I look for when I'm looking at guys for history, because you can throw a 98-mile-per-hour fastball down the middle of the plate, and if a guy swings and misses, it doesn't really make a difference if the ump is blind. It's a strike, right? But if you're going to strike guys out looking, you have to at least have some knowledge of the tendencies of what calls you're going to get and paint those corners, and Max has done that. So I would not be surprised if Max goes more than 5. I would not be surprised if he goes 6. It's probably about as much as you'll see. Personally, unless he gets shelled, unless he gets drilled, my expectation would be somewhere between 75 to 90 pitches tonight. Yeah. Certainly more than he's had the last 2 starts. Certainly more.
That's definitely where I'm thinking with this too. So I didn't expect to bet this game. Like, if anything, I was like, blindly was bullshitting, joking around at the beginning of this series and was like, oh yeah, I'm just going to bet the first 5 over on Fat Scherzer. Fuck them both. And then we get to the game and it's like, dude, am I really going to bet this game? And then all night last night, I just stayed up watching interviews with all the coaches. And that's what gets me, guys, to the no-brainer bet of the day, guys. And that's Max Scherzer's outs over 14.5.
Oh, yes.
And I know, guys, he hasn't thrown more than 63 in any start since coming off the IL, guys. But I'm going to play you a Bochy clip, as well as put a quote on the bottom of the ticker that Bochy said. Please read the fucking quote, and I'll read it aloud if you can't speak at the English when we come back, guys.
The command of all his pitches, arm strength. Now, I did go out and get him early, but he's been getting his work in. Took a good bullpen a couple of days ago, so it's just, it takes time sometimes, and each time out, I think it's just getting better.
100% since you've come back.
Like, I can throw a fastball 100%. Yeah, like I can. It's how many pitches I can make in a start. That's the number we don't have nailed down to 100%. I don't know what my finishing pitch count number is actually going to be. I'm still trying to build back up in that regard. But in terms of throwing a throwing 100% effort on a pitch, yeah, I can do that.
And that's what we get at. Read the bottom of this, guys. And there was a big old report out that had more than this, guys. At the end of the day, Bruce Bochy, before game 2, went and talked to Max. Talked to him about how he needs length, how he needs him to go deep. And if Max Scherzer's looking to punch people out left and right, guys, he's not going to go deep. Now, can we get a vintage Mad Max game where he's punching people out on 3-4 freaking pitches? Maybe, actually, with what SpinDocs was telling us about this umpire, and how if he does get those calls on the outside, they're probably going to fucking take those calls at least the first time through until they've got to adjust. Now, this team doesn't bitch and complain about an umpire. They will adjust and do what they have to do, but I had to get in, guys, on the outs over 14.5. Now, I didn't think I wanted to bet Max, but watching the reports, listening to Bochy, guys, I think he goes anywhere from 6, and no bullshit, if he goes 7 innings today, it wouldn't fucking surprise me. If he's humming, I think he goes 90 pitches. And me and SpinDoc did not talk pitch counts beforehand, so he thinks he can go 75, 90. I think he can go up to 90, and I wouldn't be surprised if he shows up with his hard hat and work boots and just even keeps the game close. He don't have to be winning. Keeps the game close. They have a bullpen day tomorrow as well. So I love over 14.5 outs with Max Scherzer today. He doesn't have to be perfect to go 5 innings. Bochy knows he needs length. Scherzer knows this team needs him to give him length today. So I've got to attack the guy who's done this shit before, guys, and a coach who's done this 100 times. If he says it, I've got to listen to what the coach says. The coach says he needs length from Max. I'm going to bet length from Max today. I'm not betting, does he give up some runs? Does he have a perfect? No, I'm betting what they need and what the coach has asked him for, and that is those outs. Give it to me, please, and thank you. Anything else to add on before we get the fat?
Yeah, even just with the end of Bochy's quote, it's just always funny when managers start to, it's almost like they start to say too much, and then just kind of, I saw it just come on the bottom, maybe not quite as long for 100, but whatever, pretty close. And then and that's all we're going to say about that. And Max kind of talking around, well, pitch count, we haven't really talked about. Yes, you have. Stop that. Yes, you have. This is the World Series, and this is a Hall of Fame manager. You have to. So that's where I got, especially when Bochy has made and then that's not the only reference he made to it about well, I don't know if we'll get him quite up to 100, but I'm confident he can get pretty close, and then leave it at that. And that tells me probably more in the 80 to 90 range, which again, unless he's getting absolutely obliterated, you're probably looking at 5 to 6 innings here from Max.
That's the way I had to take it and read it, and then that's how I had to bet it. Last pitcher that we're going to talk about, as it's only this game, Brandon Pfaadt strikeouts are at over 4.5 at a -108 on FanDuel, where his outs are 13.5, -122 to the over. Let's talk Brandon Pfaadt. I guess I should say his name right since he deserves it.
Yeah. Yeah, he's he's just a fun story. He was a top prospect several years within the Dbacks organization. He was 27th overall in MLB before being called up in the spring, and just really never went back. And now he's starting game 3 of the World Series. One thing that I've noticed watching this kid pitch in all of his postseason starts is he doesn't get rattled. Whether he's like the rest of the D-backs where, they've just done a good job of keeping him loose, or he doesn't realize the gravity of the moment, which is a good thing. That's not a bad thing. He just goes out there and just throws and makes it look really, really easy for somebody so young. He's a pretty traditional pitcher. But he does replace the slider as a put-away pitch for right-handed batters with a sweeper. The thing you'll notice when you look at Pfaadt's chart, as you can see here, is that he doesn't attack up and he doesn't attack down. He stays in the 11 to 7 and the 1 to 4 plane of a clock, which might not help him versus or when you have Marquez behind the plate and the team that is the lowest swinging team outside the zone in the postseason percentage-wise. So What I see here is that the strikeout, or sorry, the strikeout, the four-seamer and the sweeper account for almost 2/3 of his pitches. And you see that they run in opposite directions. So trying on righties, at least, trying to run one of them out and one of them up and in. Now, going back to how Marquez calls the game, if you go and look at the left-handed side, because you have Simeon on the right, who doesn't strike out much, period, doesn't chase much, the low strikeout candidate. You have Garver, who's been a low strikeout candidate these playoffs, and you have Garcia, who up until the LCS did have some strikeout problems. He's really turned it around, and obviously, as they said at the end of game one, the legend is growing. But I go and look at the right-handed hitters and think, how many times is he going to face these guys versus how many times with this data is he realistically going to strike them out? Because when you go over to the left side, home, road, doesn't matter. He's only striking out lefties at about 20%, even in the playoffs, even with some of those performances against Philly. Now, you got to remember, too, this is why you can't compare one opponent to the next. You have to compare like for like. The Phillies and the Rangers share some similarities in their power that they have, obviously, in how good their first half of their lineup is, obviously. What they aren't similar in is how they approach and swing. The Phillies swing freely. The Phillies hack. Why do you think Kyle Schwarber is hitting leadoff? He's not hitting leadoff to get on and steal bases and walk and shit like that. He's batting leadoff to hit the ball out of the park. Okay, so he has to free swing to do that. Bryce is up there to smack the ball, so on and so forth. Okay, so they have a much freer swinging team than the Rangers are. They are especially free swinging when they get down. The Rangers don't do that. You notice Arizona put up 2 in the first inning, and their plan all along was to take the first few pitches from, or at least one, from Merrill Kelly, because he likes to work the same way that Fott does. You see it on this clock here. If you compare Merrill Kelly, you'll see a lot of similarities in that he works the corners, he works the edges. He's not going to go after guys, and the reason why he doesn't is because he doesn't have an overpowering fastball. Merrill Kelly, that is. Fott's got a good fastball that can be overpowering when it's working with these other pitches. So, where I'm looking for Fott is I'm interested to see how he's going to react to inevitably when he throws a sweeper inside and he's been painting the zone like crazy and Marquez stands there and just says ball. How is a kid who's in his first World Series start going to react to that? Also go back and look at the number of pitchers slanted umpires, or at least neutral ones, that he got in his first 4 postseason starts. It was almost all of them. This is the first time that he's going to see Alfonso Marquez, and this is one of the first times that he's going to see an umpire that is so hitter slanted that will not historically give calls on the inside corner. So if that happens, then will he have to rely exclusively on his fastball for righties, or exclusively on his sweeper for lefties? Against a team like the Rangers, makes you pretty one-dimensional. So for Fott, I have a strong lean here, but on his strikeouts, and there just might be too much against him here.
Yeah, and that's where it gets into me, where this is a live betting spot. And make sure you do tune in tonight to the play-by-play with me right here on the Odds Bunch, as I will be here the whole damn game. Hopefully we don't have another game one where it's fucking 4.5 hours and I just want to hang myself. But I will play a clip real quick from Tori Lavello that will explain how I'm going to attack this live betting spot with Brendan Fott.
For game 4, but we're going to do our absolute best to go out there and do our job in game 3. And whatever that means, I'll read and react. And Brandon Fott has been improving. I've been saying 18 plus or minus 4. Maybe I go a little bit further, but I'll have those discussions starting here in the next couple of hours.
So Lavello right there, dude, speaks of the role that SpinDoc talked earlier, guys. 18, give or take 4, which means 18 batters. And at worst, you're going to go 4 less. At best, you're going to go 4 more. Well, he's only seen 18, 18, and 14 batters in his last 3 playoff starts. So I got to think that it's really 18 or less than 4. That's it. That I'm not going to believe him, and you could hear him stuttering long in other parts of it. I will play another. I deleted it actually. Other parts of that interview, guys. He just talked about how he is ready to go to his bullpen and da 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 da. And that's the game plan here, guys. Brandon Pfaadt no more than 18 batters, as even if he's humming, they need him for Game 7. They're going to need him probably for Game 7, guys. They have a great bullpen. Their bullpen is ready to go 6, 7, 8, 9 at worst and go all day tomorrow like they did in the Phillies game. They are ready for that, and they can win both of those games. They've shown it. So I don't expect Torey Lovullo to go anything past 18 batters, and that's how I'm going to get in live, guys. I can literally go under, over on his outs, depending. Does he have 3 quick outs? Does he strike out a bunch of people first time through the lineup? Because then I'll look to take his strikeouts under live. Does he struggle first inning? See 5, 6 batters? Because then we know that the count is now even worse. So there's plenty of ways to attack his outs, whether it be under or over, depending on what the books give us live. But the fact that they've been giving us these props live, I've got to either look into get in on them live, as I do not want to bet his outs over or under until I see how this team reacts to him. And if he does hum through them first time through the lineup, like I've said, his delivery is sneaky, guys. This ball's going to creep up on him. So I'm going to have to let it see how it plays out to see if I can get in on a prop live. So the only bet I got in is Max Scherzer's outs over 14.5. Anything else to add in?
Yeah, one more point about your outs. So prior to the postseason, Pfaadt had faced 20 or more batters in 13 consecutive starts. He has not faced more than 18 in any of his 4 postseason starts, and that is despite only allowing 5 earned runs in 16 2/3 innings and striking out 22 with 3 walks. So to hear, so to your point, the Lovullo comment about, well, we might stretch him out, does he go further? We'll have those discussions. That's manager speak for, I have to add that in. That ain't happening. I mean, maybe if he's pitching like a perfect game, maybe you let him go and he's got 40 pitches, but look, 3 times through the order is hard enough in a World Series game for a veteran like a Max or like a Evaldi or like a, name your guy. Guys that have done this before, it's hard. Imagine how hard it's going to be for a rookie who was born, who's 25 years old and has never pitched in this spot before. Now, yes, you could go back and you can say, well, he's never pitched in the other playoff spots and he's dominated in those. Okay, fair enough. But you have to remember his first 2 postseason starts were against the Dodgers and the Brewers, neither of whom chase inside pitches specifically. And what did he have against them? He had 2. And he had 4 strikeouts. The 2 teams that he got, or the 1 team twice that he got with a massive number of strikeouts, are the Phillies, who hack trying to blast ones. Now, if you go and you look at what kind of team are the Rangers, are they more aligned with the Phillies, trying to hack at pitches and launch them? Well, the fact that they're the most patient team in the postseason so far would probably lead you to they're more like the Dodgers and more like the Brewers.
As we're mainly pitcher guys on this show, and we did talk sides and totals. I'm not a fucking hitting prop guy, but shout out to LJ for putting me on this one months ago. And it's now 3-0 this postseason. When Corey Seager does not get a hit in a playoff game, he has come back to cash the over 1.5 in every game this postseason, with the last time being a jack in the first inning. Corey Seager went 0 in the last game, fellas. I'm not telling you what to do. I'm telling you he's 3-0 to the over 1.5 bases when going 0 the game before. Appreciate you guys all for tuning in. I'm Sharpie's Bets. If you don't know who he is, go follow